All right. We're going to do roll call once again. Matthew's here.
Ashley's here.
Zechariah, are you there?
I'm here.
Julie?
I'm here.
All right. David? David?
I don't see David signed in just yet. Let's give it a second. We have a lot of folks trying to enter in at the same time. You there yet?
David, are you there? All right, well, he will probably be joining us. Ashley, if you can make sure that he's in when he pops into the...
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're reconvening to the open session, and we do have some reportable actions that occurred during closed session. First of all, Guillermo and Carmen have tendered their resignation effective immediately today. They are no longer on the Western Hills Water District Board of Directors. So that's one thing that took place during the executive session. The second thing that I believe we're all in agreement with as the board is we're going to be moving forward on the legal process and beginning the legal process of rescinding the assignment and assumptions agreement that World Angels Crossing and the Western Hills Water District entered into. So we're just going to begin that process. It is going to be a long process, but it is a process nonetheless. And we have agreed unanimously as a board to move forward in that regards. So those are the two reportable actions that took place during the closed session. Moving on to point 5 of our agenda, motion approving consent calendar. I'm making a motion to approve the November checks and warrants, as well as the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, November 18th, 2020. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so those are approved. So now we move down to point 7, the action items. So we need to consider it, make a consideration to approve resolution number 2020-13, the resolution of the Western Hills Water District approval of expenditures of approximately $50,000 of the Diablo Grande Community Facility District 1 Mello Roos bond refinance proceeds for the payment of immediate Western Hills Water District expenses. So we're back in with the needing to pay our bills this month, and so making a motion to approve that resolution. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Right. Then under B, consideration and approval of resolution number 2020-14, and it is a resolution to appoint a new Western Hills Water District treasurer, assessor, and tax collector. So I've been on both the HOA board and the Water District board for a little while now. And when I got on the HOA board, I began to, look over things that I wanted to know the history of the HOA. And basically, a name kept popping out in some of the things that had happened many years ago for the good of the community, actually. And a name popped out to me. His name is Richard Mowry. And when I was looking into him as a person and I saw his devotion to our community and to make sure things in this community were running correctly, I remember reading the things about him and I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. Then when I got onto the water board, his name appeared again. And when he was a homeowner up here, he's no longer a homeowner up here, but he was a homeowner up here for many years. His name came up in some filings that I saw, and I was like, wow, this guy's an interesting character. He seems to really want to make sure things are done above board and in full transparency. So I began to, as I took over the presidency of the water board, and listening to the community and wanting to make sure that we're above board and doing things properly, because fraud, abuse, waste, these words are thrown around a lot by a lot of different people. And I want to make sure that we're doing everything above board. Well, Richard Mowry's name came to my mind. So I contacted him. Once again, he doesn't live here in the area anymore. He is a lawyer. And I want to read a bio that he provided. Hang on a second. Pulling it up. Sorry, guys. My computer is not being cooperative at the moment. Basically, he sent a bio, and it's pretty long. So what I did was I took excerpts out of it that I feel are the most important. Hold on.
David's here.
Okay, hi David. Please forgive me. Why is my gosh, where did this bio go? Please forgive me, everybody. Technical difficulties. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm just going to read this to give the homeowners a little bit of a brief information on him. He is here in the meeting, and we can ask him questions as a board, but I thought this would give a little bit of information to the community so you kind of know who this individual is. Mr. Mowry is a licensed California attorney. He's a United States Air Force veteran, a former aerospace inspector, and most importantly, he's a former Diablo Grande resident. Mr. Mowry states that he is not driven by money, but by an endless curiosity and a passion for justice. He says that at the age of 10, he enjoyed poring over financial statements of public companies as taught to him by his grandfather, who was an accountant himself. He bought his first stock at the age of 12, and while on active duty maintaining avionics systems for F-15 aircraft for an interceptor squadron, he attended the Christopher Newport University in Virginia full-time as a finance major. After his return to California, he was an aerospace inspector for McDonnell Douglas on both the prototypes and production of the C-17 Global Master. He then went on to the Western State University and obtained an ABA and accredited Juris Doctorate degree. About a year after law school, Mr. Mowry decided to take the California bar exam. The pass rate was less than 30% at that time. With no bar review courses and no months of full-time study, he took and passed the California bar exam on his first try. Mr. Mowry has handled well over 1,000 adoptions nationwide for the nation's top adoption lawyer firms, including complex interstate matters. Adoptions require meticulous attention to detail and court approval of all expenses and accounting. He also has handled class action litigation focused on consumer and employee rights. As a Diablo Grande resident, and this is what I alluded to earlier, Mr. Mowry fought for transparency and homeowner control of the Diablo Grande Homeowners Association until the developer conceded its unfounded claim for majority control of via extra votes. With his limited access to the Diablo Grande HOA financial records, he exposed accounting irregularities that shortly preceded the discovery of a $250,000 embezzlement of the Diablo Grande HOA funds by the management company at the time, as well as other unlawful expenditures under the developer-controlled board. This embezzlement was missed by those who completed access to the accounting, including the HOA board, the HOA attorney, and the independent CPA who audited the DG HOA accounting records. The comptroller of the HOA management company was convicted for embezzlement and was sentenced to over 3 years in a federal penitentiary. And basically, when he did that, he worked for the community pro bono without charge, simply because it was the right thing to do. That's a quote from him. So in talking to Mr. Mowry, I believe that he will bring that same passion of transparency, justice, and accountability that he has stated in his bio. He also made this quote in his bio. It says, quote, "It is my solemn pledge to work for the community, address the district's financial problems, and finally give the residents a voice at the Western Hills Water District." So this is the gentleman's just a segment of basically the bio that he sent. And I personally am recommending him for this position. When talking to him, he is willing to do this as a volunteer. He is asking, though, that his expenses are paid for, like gas up here from time to time when he needs to come to the district, and little things like that, photocopying, whatever he might have to do, his expenses. But I feel that we have an obligation to the community here to be transparent. And I'm hoping over the next few months that we can begin to educate the community on how things work, where we're at as a water district. But I think that that all has to be tempered with a transparency and bringing someone in that used to live up here, that has the track record that he has, to get involved and to report back to the board things that he finds. And there might not be anything major, but he may say, hey, you need to tighten this up, or you might need to do a little bit better here. I'm looking for transparency, and I feel that the community moving forward needs to have this transparency. So that is my recommendation. Mr. Mowry is here in our conversation, and we can unmute him to answer board questions that you
He's unmuted.
Mr. Mowry, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Richard. So
Hello.
I again want to thank you personally that you are willing to be here today, and that you're willing to volunteer your time to help us get on track. Any questions from board members to Mr. Mowry?
I have a quick question just based on your intro there. You're not suggesting that this person be elected to the board to replace one of the two positions, correct?
This is an officer position.
Okay.
Board of directors are now you, me, and Julie Davis,
Right.
because we just had the resignations in our executive meeting of Guillermo and Carmen. Those positions will then have to be filled by an election or an appointment.
Okay.
And so, no, Mr. Mowry would just be an officer. He doesn't have any voting responsibilities or anything like that. It's just the office of, just like Ashley is our secretary of the board. She's in an office position. So no, this is just a simple office position. There's no voting rights or anything of that nature.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I do have a quick question. Something you mentioned in your intro kind of really spawned my interest. Mr. Mowry, can you tell us give us some more details on the fraud that you exposed within the HOA?
Well,
Can you expand on that a bit? That's very interesting.
what happened was I was asking for records, financial records from Nathan McGuire, the HOA attorney, and he was basically playing hide the ball. He was not giving me access to check statements, reconciliations as required by the California law. There were some things they were generating financial reports and they weren't making sense. There was something wrong. And finally, I got a balance sheet that didn't balance, and it was off by give or take about $250,000. So I picked up the phone and I called the CPA that audited the finances and told her hey, my balance sheet doesn't match. It doesn't balance. There's something seriously wrong here. I don't understand this. How can a balance sheet not balance? And then she told me, well, my balance sheet does balance. So then I said, she asked me for the exact amount. I told her this is the exact amount to the penny. And then she told me, she said, she looked it up and she said, that's loans from the reserves, undisclosed loans from the reserves. Well, I then immediately fired off an email to the HOH attorney and told him, basically, I just raised Cain and told him, you know, this is going on. And I imagine the CPA got involved at that point because there's allegations of fraud. I told her there are allegations of fraud now. And so a short while later, there was a emergency homeowner association meeting and they suddenly discovered $250,000 missing. The feds got involved and ultimately Chris Barna, which was the controller for the homeowner association management company, he was charged and convicted and sentenced to well over 3 years.
So just so everybody knows, this was a long time ago. We've cleaned up that, and Mr. Mowry is to be thanked for that. And now we have a great working HOA board, and we have great legal counsel, and common interest is awesome. So that's just so everybody knows that this didn't happen just recently. This was a long time ago.
Were there other people on the board that were implicated in this scheme? Was it a scheme? What would we consider it?
Well, there was more than that, but the thing is the board was controlled by the developer, and they promised the community a forensic audit of all the accounting records. It turned out to be not a forensic audit of the accounting records, but actually just an audit of how much money was owed to the management company and how much the management company owed the HOA in missing money. So the alternative was always to sue the HOA, but the problem is if I file suit against the HOA, then I'm costing the homeowners money, and
Right.
then I'm making money off the HOA, and I didn't want to do that. So I was between a rock and a hard place. But I do have available from that my prior investigation, I have records showing what took place while World was in control of the HOA, which included, you might imagine, some misallocation of resources actually to the water district. The HOA was basically, for example, here's a couple examples. The HOA was paying for the bottled water for the employees of the water district. The HOA was paying for the copy machine maintenance at the water district back in the day. I have a concern that maybe that could have been added to that some of these expenses could be not proper, and it never went anywhere. The only option was to file suit, and something I was not willing to do.
So basically, without getting into, because we don't know where we're at right now. So these are a lot of things that happened in the past. But this is again why when I have been doing my research, which is called my due diligence, there have been a lot of concerns that I have had, and I hope there is nothing nefarious going on. I don't believe there is, at least with the information I have before me now. But that's why I kind of like the idea of bringing Mr. Mowry in, because he has a proven track record to be able to get in and find things. And, you know, our whole point is moving forward. We're in a very dire situation as a water district, and we have to take things serious. And one thing that Angels Crossing has continued to say, which I think is actually a fair comment, to be honest, they say, we don't want to pay. That's not the fair comment because you're in a contract, you got to pay. But let me make the point. They don't want to pay until they find out and make sure that there is no nefarious things going on at the water district, because they throw out, we're corrupt, we're embezzling, we're fraud, you know, there's all the stuff that they're assuming is happening. And that part, I'm like, okay, I think that's a fair question for a developer coming in to make. And I've always been wanting, we haven't had the numbers on the board to make it happen, but now we do. And that is to be more transparent with the community. And I think that having fresh eyes, Carmen was the treasurer for 12, 13 years, and she represented World. And I personally think she's done a great job in her tenure. But 12, 13 years, I kind of want fresh eyes on things. I would like to have a new look at things, and where we can make improvements as a water district, I want someone to come and say, hey, here's some things where I see you can make improvements. If there's some huge, heinous, horrible embezzlement or something that has gone on, well, of course I want that uncovered. And, as we saw in an HOA case many years ago, people went to jail. If people need to go to jail, then people need to go to jail. But right now, we don't know if any of that has ever happened. So I don't want to make any kind of assumptions, but because the perception of the community is we haven't had transparency, I want to give that transparency now. And that is why I'm recommending Mr. Mowry for this position. I think that he has the ability to be an outside set of eyes, very much attention to detail, to be able to go through things, and we can take his advice and say, okay, yeah, let's make some changes here, make some changes there. Hopefully he will come up with, there was no fraud, or there was no embezzlement, or there was no big this, that, or the other thing. That is what I'm actually hoping for. But if whatever happens, happens. But I really feel that the transparency is what's really important as we move forward, because of the situation we're in and the dire situation that we're in as a water district.
So you made some good points, but however, I kind of want to push back real quickly just against what you said about Angels Crossing, feeling like they have justification in that, making the comments about corruption and whatnot. Didn't we just have an audit recently of our books?
Yeah.
And we came out clean as a whistle, correct?
Yeah, we had a state audit was I want to say 2012 or something like that. The state came in and audited us, and basically the only thing they felt or found was the fact that we were having such a struggle paying bills and stuff was because the developer was not paying the amount of subsidy that was necessary. So that kind of came out of that audit, but there was nothing nefarious found, because if there had been, we would have been thrown over to the full audit committee, and that would have been a nightmare. So when they came in, they found nothing in that regards. And then every year our finances are audited, but that's more of a financial audit, and it doesn't go really humongously in depth on anything. But yes, our books are our books, and so there's no nefariousness there. So we're audited every year, but then just a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a big audit from the state of California, and we passed that.
Okay.
So, hi, this is Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi there. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Julie.
I've been here for several years, obviously, and I was here when we went through a lot of that with the Homeowners Association, so I can attest to the passion that Mr. Mowry has for the community and for transparency. So I definitely happy that he would be willing to offer his time and services, especially given that the district just doesn't have the finances to hire anybody to really look into anything. But and then I also agree with the pushback that Zachariah is speaking of, because I think just if Angels Crossing picks up the phone and gives Kern County a call, you can't argue with the fact that we owe millions of dollars to Kern County. And I'd say that's pretty transparent. That's probably not considered corruption unless they're calling Kern County corrupt. So
Really, just to interrupt you really quick on that, the community should know that, as of a few days ago or a few weeks ago, definitely the last board meeting, Kern was owed $1.8 million And as of today, another 1 million has been added to that debt. So now we're up to 2.8 million, almost $3 million owed to Kern County. So the community needs to understand that. And that is due to the fact that Angels Crossing and World International stopped paying the subsidy, and they're in breach of contract. So we're at almost
Okay.
$2 worth of debt, folks.
I think the community, is it okay to discuss so that the community really understands what this subsidy is all about?
Well, for now,
how
let's
this
go ahead and
goes
keep
back
it to the
into-
let's go ahead and keep it to the motion, actually.
Okay, great.
What's on the
You got to
agenda?
keep it to the motion
Okay.
of appointing a new treasurer, assessor, and tax collector.
Okay. Okay, great.
But do you have any questions for Mr. Mowery, or does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Mowery on this issue? Board members?
I don't.
Yeah, I'll have a question. What would be your main aim and goal in filling this position? What do you seek to achieve?
Thank you for asking. You know, I hated to go off on a tangent, but the number one goal isn't to root out corruption. It's to look at the financial controls and the fiscal operations of the water district and look for ways to increase efficiency and to bring financial solvency to the district. That's the number one goal. I would say my second goal would be to take a look at the, I've been gone for about 7 or 8 years. In the past, there was some question about the voting rights of homeowners. And I would like to look at the voting rights and see whether or not all the homeowners are getting full votes for their properties. And I would evaluate that as well. And then, of course, look for anything that piques my interest. I haven't seen the book, so I can't comment on what's going on at the district because I simply don't know, but I will know once I get under the hood and start seeing how things are operating.
Okay. That sounds reasonable to me.
Mhm.
All right, so, oh, go ahead, Julie.
No, I was just going to say, given it's a position of assessor tax collector also, I think we could utilize Richard to help us with these Mello Roos delinquencies severely in the district.
So basically, bringing him in as an officer, that he will definitely be able to be, we can talk to him and utilize him for that under that auspice as well. That
great.
would fall under that type of tax collector. Tax collector, Mello Roos is a tax.
Yes, okay. Okay,
All right, well, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-14, a resolution to appoint the new Western Hills Water District officer, so it's an officer, for the office of treasurer, assessor, and tax collector. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Welcome to the board. David, do we have to give him a swearing in kind of thing or no, because he's an officer?
We can do that offline.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move to point C, and this is to authorize the staff to request proposals from qualified firms interested in providing special counsel services to the Western Hills Water District for Diablo Grande Community Facility District Number 1 Mello Roos litigation. And so basically, the Lavelle law offices are currently who we're using regarding the Mello Roos or the foreclosure process and those kind of things. But as we are now going to move forward, I'm not necessarily confident with that legal organization. For the community, there's a couple things here. One, they share the same offices with Guillermo. And they have also been brought to my attention that they have represented World International previously. And so, again, taking charge just a few months ago, I began to be very concerned with them, even though they may be completely doing everything correctly. I just have some questions about it. So what this proposal is for us as a board to discuss whether or not we should be looking for legal counsel that is outside of an organization that's wrapped up kind of in world and has had a perception that they might not be working in the best interests of the Western Hills Water District. So this would be a resolution to allow us to look for other counsel and possibly hire other counsel. It's not firing, so to speak, or saying we're not going to use Lavelle. It's basically just opening up more avenues for us to search for a different attorney firm. And so I throw it out there for us to discuss. Julie? Is that
Hi.
correct?
I'm all for this definitely because I'm concerned that the Mello Roos has been sitting there for 3 years delinquent on all of this land within the district. And then that this sale occurred maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago while all this land should have been in foreclosure. So I'm not really sure what was going on. I wasn't on the board at the time, but I would have thought that all of this property should have been in foreclosure at least 2 to 3 years ago. And perhaps the buyer of this land may have the capability of paying the agreement, the subsidies under the master agreement, and might be actually developing land. So I'm concerned that didn't happen. I still don't understand why that never happened, given especially that all of the land in the district was sold for a mere $100,000. I mean, you could have given a land away 3 years ago, but it sat for so long while the developer was becoming delinquent on the subsidies, and also their own water billing. So I do have concern for that. So I am definitely on board for potentially seeking other firms. Or maybe we'll be able to get some information from Lavelle that explains it.
Zachariah, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Well, I would say the fact that they're sharing office space, certainly raises eyebrows a bit. I mean, obviously there's no accusations or anything, but I would like to have the best appearances as possible anyway for removing any sort of doubt or confusion regarding that situation. So yeah, I would say I'm in agreement as well.
All right, so we are going to make a motion to approve the request that we're talking about to get proposals from qualified firms interested in providing special counsel services to the Western Hills Water District for Diablo Grande Community Facility District 1 Mello Roos litigation. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item passes. All right, are there any reports from district staff? Anything, Jerry, you want to report on or discuss or anything?
Jerry's here with me and there's nothing.
Okay. All right, so nothing to report on. Report from any board members.
I don't have anything in particular.
Neither do I. All right.
I don't either.
Number 10, public comment on items not on the agenda. So interested persons in the audience or by teleconference are welcome to introduce any topic within the district's jurisdiction. Matters presented under this agenda item may be discussed, but no action can be taken by the board at this meeting except as follows. We can either briefly respond to the statements made or questions raised, or we can ask a question for clarification. We can provide a reference to staff or other resource for factual information. We can request staff to report back at a subsequent meeting, or a board member or the board itself may take action to direct staff to place the matter of business on a future agenda. So we're going to open this up one person at a time. We ask that people be respectful. We ask people to treat people with respect, no cursing, no cussing, none of this kind of stuff. We need to have a reasonable discussion, even if we disagree or agree or whatever. Let's keep this above board. It's the holidays. Let's be nice. And let's open it up one person at a time. You have 2 minutes. Ashley will let you know when you about have 30 seconds left to finish up your point, and then we'll move on so everybody who wants to talk has a chance to speak. Ashley, you can have people go.
Yeah, please just hit the raise hand button. If that's not working, go ahead and message me in the chat and I will pull you in.
So Ashley, yeah, we're just gonna have them raise their hand in their thing or chat and say they'd like to talk, and then you just unmute one at a time.
Correct.
Who's first?
As it stands, unless I'm not seeing something properly, I don't see. Oh, just one second. I do see one. Rhonda Lucas would like to come in. Rhonda, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Hi, Ms.
Okay.
Lucas.
Board of Directors, as you are all aware, you have in front of you a petition that was properly served on the board secretary pursuant to your bylaws, calling for a special election for all 5 seats of the Western Hills Water District Board. Under your bylaws, you have no other option but to call for that election and begin proceeding with that election. The community deserves an election. All 5 of the seats are open. Anybody is allowed to apply that meets the qualifications. I would like to know when you are going to commence with the election process, when people in the community can submit their papers for candidacy if they so choose, and when you will be informing the county of the election that is to be held.
So here's our statement. A couple of hours ago, the Western Hills Water District received a petition by Angels Crossing and several landowners. I believe there were seven landholders, or Angels Crossing and 7 homeowners, demanding the board to call for a special election. Given that staff has just received the documents it is reviewing to make sure it meets the minimum requirements to trigger a special election, putting together a timeline and estimated costs, so the board will take action on this in a further meeting. So we're just going to move this to January so we can take a look at things, because we didn't have time to look at it before this.
Again, I refer you to your bylaws and encourage you to read them closely. There's no action for you to take. The petition simply has to be submitted to the board secretary, which I personally did this morning. And you are required, it is your duty to hold the election. For anybody who is questioning that, I refer you to the Western Hills Water District bylaws. If you don't have a copy, send a Public Records Act request to Western Hills Water District and they are obligated to send them to you.
Mr. Hobbs, would you like to answer Ms. Lucas?
Sure, just really quickly, it's their duty to make sure that the petition actually meets the minimum requirements to trigger that. At this point in time, it's been received, but there's not been time to go through it. To the extent that the board did actually just accept it right before, without doing its due diligence of checking to make sure that it meets the requirements, and did hold a special election, it would disenfranchise those people who didn't attempt to join the petition. So it'll take place in due course per the bylaws.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Lucas, for your comment. Anybody else want to talk?
I have Isaiah up next. Let me go ahead and unmute him now. Just a second. Isaiah, I'm going to hit you with the unmute button and then you're good to go.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, good health to everyone. Please stay safe, protect yourselves, follow guidelines and all that stuff.
Thank you.
I am so proud of this board and gratified that you finally people who have a real interest in the community will have a say-so and have had a say-so due to the good works of the current board. I called in a long time, well, back in September or so, and everything that you're doing now seems to be being done with some thought and strategy to try to get you out of a dire situation that happened while the developer and their assignee have been in control of your destiny. And where are you? It's already been mentioned that because World reneged on its subsidy obligations and Angels Crossing has violated every tenet of its contract that it was foisted on this board, should, I hope, keep you skeptical and questioning about those two entities' purposes when they first came, when they assumed these obligations freely. So I don't see how you guys can be in any worse position going forward, making the decisions that are on the agenda, because basically you, as long as they were in control, you had no options. You were a captive audience.
1 minute warning.
So I just want to encourage you to continue to stay in with the community. I don't see how someone who allegedly represents Angels Crossing has such a strong interest in this community, because her client, if they are in fact her client, they haven't demonstrated any good faith to date. So I think you're on your own and you have options. Try to think about the motivations of World in not meeting its obligations and rendering the water district insolvent. I don't get why some members of the community are pointing the finger at the residents who have a vested interest in seeing success. Now, what World's objectives were they trying to reduce the price of the bonds in the marketplace so they could gobble them up at a cheaper price, knowing that the financial statements from 2019 are sent to the bondholders, scaring the bondholders into believing that you're not going to have any water and they're never going to get their investments back? That's possible. I don't know. Or did they set Angels Crossing in place knowing they had no funds, no monies, wanting them to file bankruptcy and trying to cram down or knock down the obligations that World had previously undertaken? That's what, they got the property through the bankruptcy court 10 years ago. And most people are aware that bankruptcy petitions can be crammed down. That means the trustee, usually the U.S. trustee, deals with the creditors and tell them you're not going to get more than 5 cents on the dollar anyway. And these guys was
Isaiah, my apologies, but your time is up.
okay. Well, was World trying to get its liabilities reduced by bringing in a straw man? I don't know, but you guys have to be very skeptical. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that you're going to do the right thing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Am I missing anybody else? Anyone else? Anybody's hand raised? If that's not working properly, please message me privately. I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. I don't see any hands raised, so if I'm missing something, please let me know.
All right.
That's all.
All right. So we're going to have our next regular meeting on Wednesday, January the 13th, 2021. And I wish you all a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2021. And let's hope we have a better year. And I'm a motion to adjourn. Second it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.